Тихо, тихо. Повторні виходи!
According to claims from Russian military bloggers, Ukrainian forces have launched offensives on several fronts, including Kupiansk, Svatove, Toretsk, and Pokrovsk. In addition, there are claims that Ukrainian Marines may soon attempt to seize several islands on the Dnipro River Delta. We will soon find out is this true, but we know that Ukrainian managed to break the siege of Pokrovsk, counterattacked in Toretsk, and re-entered the city. And on the Toretsk front, the 28th Brigade took out 4 Blyat-Barn tanks with a group of assault forces under its metal sheets. The column was caught in a fire trap, after which Ukrainian artillery and UAV pilots began eliminating the column. After months of intense fighting, Ukrainian forces have re-entered Toretsk, reclaiming control from Russian occupiers. This strategic town, long under enemy pressure, was a key objective in breaking the siege of Pokrovsk. Ukrainian assault units launched a surprise offensive, exploiting gaps in Russian defenses weakened by relentless drone and artillery strikes. As Ukrainian brigades pushed forward, Russian lines crumbled under precision fire, forcing their troops into chaotic retreat. The breakthrough didn't stop there. Advancing forces rapidly moved to relieve Pokrovsk, where encircled defenders had held out against overwhelming odds. By cutting off Russian supply routes and neutralizing command posts, Ukraine turned the tide. The fall of Toretsk and the lifting of the Pokrovsk siege mark a significant shift in momentum. Once again, Ukraine proves that resilience, strategy, and precision warfare can overcome sheer numbers, reminding Moscow that no occupation is permanent. With frontline positions collapsing, Russian forces are now scrambling to reinforce their defenses, but Ukraine's momentum is already pushing them further back. Operators of FPV drones from the Belarusian Kalinowski Regiment are eliminating enemy infantry, a 120mm mortar, and enemy motor vehicles in the Zaporizhzhia direction. The Belarusian Kalinowski Regiment, composed of Belarusian volunteers, has become a symbol of resistance against Russian aggression. Formed in support of Ukraine, the regiment fights not only for Ukrainian sovereignty, but also for the freedom of Belarus from the oppressive regime of Alexander Lukashenko. Trained and equipped by Ukraine, these fighters are dedicated to liberating their homeland from tyranny, showing that the spirit of resistance transcends borders. Their presence on the front lines is a powerful message to both Russia and Belarus that the fight for freedom is universal. Footage of a repeated Russian strike on rescuers during the aftermath of a missile attack in Kryvyi Rih.
Тихо, тихо. Повторні виходи! Да, зайка, я живой. Да, машину разбила, правда.
The Ukrainians have agreed to a ceasefire, and now we will see if we can persuade the Russians to agree to a ceasefire as well, says J.D. Vance.
Well, we've got some conversations that are happening on the phone and in person with some of our representatives over the next couple of days. As the President said, we think that we're in a very good place where the Ukrainians have agreed to a ceasefire, and we're now going to see whether we can get the Russians to agree to a ceasefire too, and we'll certainly have news on that when we find out that news.
Nate Vance, U.S. veteran who fought for Ukraine for 3 years, cousin of Vice President J.D. Vance. The concept of an imperialistic, aggressive, modernized military Russia who has learned their lessons about modern combat is problematic for our future.
Nate, I know you call yourself a Republican-leaning independent. I know you've been supportive at times of the Trump administration, but on this issue of Ukraine, where you have put so much of your life over these past few years, you think your cousin is misguided. How come?
I think my experience in Ukraine has given me a unique perspective that most Americans don't have. There are certainly cultural differences both between the Ukrainians and Americans and the Russians. And I think if you try to deal with Russia through an American lens, it will come back to bite you. They don't necessarily think like we think. And I'm talking about their political class. I've personally witnessed them shooting their own troops on enough occasions that it wasn't just an isolated incident. It's happened quite a bit. enough to the point where you could consider it to be policy if troops are retreating. So these people, as a policy, will eat their own. So they will not hesitate to eat an American president or an American vice president. They don't care what we think. They're not our allies, and they never will be, not at least for a generation.
I know that you've tried to reach out to your cousin since he took office, but haven't been successful. I mean, what were you planning to say to him? I mean, what do you want to say to him now in this moment?
Well, look, I mean, there's more than one reason why you could make the argument for supporting Ukraine. There's the, kind of emotional argument, the human element argument part of it, which, fine, if that's the argument you want to make in order to support Ukraine, then I support that. There's also the element of how it will affect the United States long term, right? So if you're just more transactional in nature and you are concerned, what is the benefit for the United States? I don't think there's any scenario where like if this war pauses and sanctions are lifted, Russia has spent the last 3 years kind of beefing up their military-industrial complex, and if you lift those sanctions, you're going to see a massive influx of funds into that military-industrial complex, and they're going to build a war machine out of it, right? That's what they're going to do. And the concept of an imperialistic, aggressive, modernized military Russia who has learned their lessons about modern combat is problematic for our future. And if the Russians are given significant concessions in this ceasefire, they will spin that as a victory of sorts. But their view is they're not done. So to them, it's just a chance to regroup, build up and modernize, and they'll come back. And when they do come back, they'll be more of a problem than they are now. Right now, they're at the weakest they will ever be. As soon as the ceasefire starts, they will immediately start to get stronger and continue to get stronger every day thereafter. So the way this ends is important.
North Korea has significantly increased the area of several military factories since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The axis of evil is militarizing on a very alarming scale. About 20 factories may be involved in the production of shells and missiles for Russia in North Korea, according to the 38 North website, which specializes in the analysis of the situation in North Korea, its armed forces, and military risks for neighboring countries. French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu said that Ukraine's armed forces remain the main guarantee of security for the country, and that Europe will refuse any demilitarization of the Ukrainian army.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. He's doing the job every day.